All right, welcome to Systematic Theology. Today what I want to talk with you about is just a little bit about the layout of the class and why it is structured the way it is so you'll understand what we're going to do. And so I have a presentation that I will show you. You can see here that we're talking about systematic theology. And so what is theology? That would be the first thing that you would want to know. Theology is simply the study of God. Theology is a breakdown of two words, theos and logos. Theos meaning God, logos meaning word or study of. And so we're going to be talking about the study of God. Now, I will give you another description of why you need to focus on theology, but today what I want to do is just talk about the nuts and bolts of the class so that you understand how it's laid out, why I've structured it the way I have. So in this class, you're going to have a few different things that we'll go through. When you get to the notes, you're going to see what I have up for you here on the screen. Let's see if it's working right. Biblical foundation, historical consideration, theological formulation, and then practical application. Now let me walk through those with you just quick and tell you why I structured the notes this way. As we look at systematic theology, we break down different doctrines and talk about all the different places the Bible mentions it. Now the Bible is our foundation. We rely on nothing else. I'm reminded of a story that W.A. Criswell used to tell about a dad coming home from Sunday school and seeing his little boy standing in the middle of the living room, and he was standing on top of the Bible, and he was singing the song, the B-I-B-L-E, yes, that's the book for me. I stand alone on the Word of God, the B-I-B-L-E. Well, maybe that little boy misunderstood the song a little bit. He was standing on his Bible while singing it, but we do stand alone on the Word of God. And so the Bible is the most important aspect of theology. We're going to look at what the Bible has to say about each doctrine. That's our foundation. But there are some parts of the Bible that are difficult to understand. And so we looked at history also to consider what history has to say. Now, when we look at the church fathers, we don't take what they have to say as the gold standard. But if we're coming up with a new thought nobody's ever thought of in over 2,000 years of Christian history, might be a little indication there that you need to rethink that a little bit. And so hopefully we have a foundation behind us that says, yes, your thoughts are good, this is the right interpretation. Perhaps you're going to find where the Middle Ages and where the patristics disagreed over something, where their culture has influenced them. Perhaps you're going to find that our culture has influenced us on some views, and so that's why we look at history to make sure that we're doing good interpretation of our biblical foundation. Then after we've looked at what history has said and we looked at what the Bible has said, we move from that point to formulating our own doctrine, because we have to put together a systematic theological formulation ourselves. We do that. It's in the notes. I'm going to ask you to do that personally as well, and so you're going to have to come up with your own systematic theology. What do you believe, and how does it fit together as one system? And then if you leave off the last part, it does you absolutely no good. Knowledge alone is not worthwhile in the Christian life if you don't apply it. So you have to apply it to your life, and then you have to apply it in your discipleship, and you have to apply it in evangelism. And so what we look at in theology should be lived out. When we learn more about God and His love for us, it should change the way we live and the way we follow God. And so hopefully our practical application will be applied to your life, and it'll change the way you live. And so that's the way every section of the notes is broken down. We'll always start with our biblical foundation, then we'll move to historical consideration, then it's time to do your own theological formulation, and then you got to apply what you've learned to your life for practical application. And so I want to make sure everybody does that in their own personal life. All right, why systematic? You could look at biblical theology of the doctrine of John, the book of John. You could look at philosophical theology and look at different arguments for the existence of God. You could look just at historical theology and study the Reformation. What we do in systematic theology is bring all of that together. And so we're going to use the biblical thought. So we'll talk about Christology in the Gospel of John. But we're also going to talk about Christology in the rest of the Bible. We're going to look at what the Reformation had to say, but we're also going to look at what the rest of history had to say. And we're going to use philosophical arguments when we come to our systematic formulation, but we're going to do that alongside the biblical and the historical. And so bringing it all together gives us a systematic understanding of the major doctrines of the Bible. And that's what we're here to do, is to look at that. But now your notes are just one section of the class. And so let me explain to you just a moment how the class is laid out so you'll understand it. You see, you start out with a book. You start out with a pretty big book. We're going to use Wayne Grudem's Systematic Theology. And this book is 1,200 and something pages. 1,291 to be exact. Expecting you to memorize all of this would be too much. And so you have a book that you can go back to look at what somebody has said in their systematic formulation, and you can always consult this. But this being too much, we move to the notes. And in the notes, we have a much smaller portion. Your notes for this semester are going to be about 100 pages. For the entire year, it will be about 200 pages. And so we break down this book into a smaller section that I expect you to be much more familiar with. And your test is going to come off of that because I want you to take the 100 pages and break it down to a smaller section that you have internalized into your own mind so that you understand all the major systematic areas and you can understand the questions. Because again, we have to apply this to our lives. And so if somebody asks you about the existence of God, you need to have a hook that you have hung the existence of God on. And so when you come to that question, you're able to pull from that and use the information in your mind, refer back to your notes, and then maybe go all the way back to your systematic textbook if you need to. But that way you have a short answer at least that you can give. Perhaps you're at the front of the church one Sunday, you've just preached a sermon, you're standing there, you've invited people to come forward, and somebody comes forward and asks you a systematic theology question right after the service. How do you answer? Well, that's what we want to give you. We want to give you a short answer that you can use in those scenarios so that you have good information as you teach people, as you disciple people, as you try to answer their questions when they really want to know the answers. And then you can always go back and do more research along the way as well. And so we start with the book, we move to the notes, and after we move to the notes, I want you to internalize even a shorter portion that you have memorized that you can give back out to others. I also need to tell you about one other book that you're going to have to review this semester. This book is Walter Rossenbusch's A Theology for the Social Gospel. What I want you to do this semester is not get an indoctrination. I want you to get an education. In order to do that, I have to have you read a conservative textbook and a liberal textbook. This is a liberal textbook. Some of you are going to find some good things in here, and there are a few good things in here. But all of these tabs in here is where I found heresy or things that I grossly disagree with. And so I don't want you to read this book and think, this is what the professor believes, because it's not. I could tell you what liberalism is, but if I tell you what liberalism is, you're getting a slanted viewpoint because I don't believe it. Instead, I need to hand you a book and say, read this from one of these guys, their own writings, so that you get firsthand information about liberalism, you get a fair understanding of it, and then you're going to look and you're going to read a conservative. You read the conservative textbook and you see it from a guy that believes it, and then my job in class and my job as we go through these discussions is to help guide you through the liberal understanding, conservative understanding, and show you my own opinion, which is that liberal dog just won't hunt. And so we're going to go through the differences. Hopefully you're going to fall on my side, but somewhere along the way you're going to disagree with me. I understand that. I'm open to that. I welcome that. I don't want you to come out being indoctrinated. I want you to think through the issues. I want you to get an education. I want you to wrestle with the tough concepts that are in the Bible. I want you to grow closer to God. And when you finish all of this, I want you to have a systematic theology that fits together so that you understand how one doctrine affects another doctrine and how when you merge those doctrines together, you can truly understand the great God that we serve. Now, are we ever going to completely understand Him? No. We have finite minds. He's an infinite God. We're not going to put Him in a box. But through wrestling with these concepts, hopefully our love and our passion for God and His Word and doing theology and ministering to others will come forth in our own lives. And so this is the way the class is designed. Hope it gives you a little more information about it, helps you understand why it's laid out the way it is. And we'll be coming back to talk more about it later.